Hello, everybody, and welcome to our first year study abroad session. My name is Jacqueline, and I am the International Education Intern at the Center for International Programs. So I will be your host for today. If you are a first year student and you're thinking about study abroad, this is the session for you. As a first year student, you probably have a lot to juggle, but it's never too early to start planning ahead and planning for your study abroad opportunity. So during this session, we're going to address some questions, but rest assured there are a number of supports that are available to you. And so today we're going to have Mike, who is our Education Abroad Advisor, and Jess, who is one of our current peer helpers. And they are going to share some of their experiences and some of their knowledge with you. So over the course of the next half hour, we'll talk about the different study abroad programs and various supports that are available to study abroad participants, and whether it's financial, logistical, health and safety, emotional, social supports, or academic supports, we're going to talk about it. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, I'm going to ask our two panelists here if you have a travel story that you could share with our listeners. So Mike, I'm going to ask you first. What is your travel story? Mike, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. For me, one of my favorite memories has to do with the safari that I went on in Namibia. We found ourselves in Etosha National Park, and we were there for a few nights. And at this one location, you're allowed to go to this place where it's fenced off, and they have this light overlooking this watering hole. So you can imagine it's like midnight. You're covered up in a blanket, and you just quietly watch all the animals come in. So you'll see the rhinos, you'll see like the different animals kind of creeping in and taking a drink from the watering hole. So for me, that was just like a memorable night, very magical, and something that I hope to do again someday soon.
That sounds like a very cool, very surreal experience. What about you, Jess? What's your travel story that you could share?
One of my probably most memorable times on exchange was we were in Scotland, and we went to go climb Arthur's Seat. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's basically like a huge mountain and cliff. And we actually woke up at like 4 a.m. to go climb this mountain so we can watch the sunrise. And it was just one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Like, you're sitting on the top of the mountain, you're watching the sunrise, and then if you look to the right, you can see the Scottish Highlands and like all the mountains with the snow on them, and it was just very, very pretty.
Wow, that sounds really cool too. So I'm going to send it back to Mike, and I'm going to ask, what advice would you give to students who are thinking about study abroad, particularly those who are in their first year?
For all the first year students out there, my first words of advice would be to check out our website at www.uoguelph.ca/CIP. All the information is there for you to explore your different options. Now, I know for a lot of students, they might have this notion that study abroad involves a semester exchange. And while that's a huge part of it, there's many different options as well. So for example, in the summertime, there are language programs that may be offered for a few weeks. There are short-term summer programs where you can go away and earn part-time credits. And there are research opportunities as well as field schools. One thing I like about field schools is that if you're new to traveling, this might be a great way to get some initial international experience, as you're traveling with a University of Guelph professor and a group of University of Guelph students as well. So it's a great way to travel and to earn some credits. Now, I always tell students, if you aspire to travel and you consider yourself to be open-minded, flexible, adaptable, resilient, those traits will help you thrive in your study abroad experience. So if you have that curiosity and sort of interest and passion to travel, we're all here to support you in achieving your study abroad goals as well. So that would be my advice for first-year students.
Thanks, Mike. I like that you pointed out all the different options that are available to students. So Jess, what advice would you have?
My advice for first-year students would be to definitely follow CIP on our platforms. So we have a Facebook, an Instagram, and a Twitter, and there's a lot of good information like about studying abroad on our platforms, and we feature other past students who have been on abroad, so you can kind of see their experiences and learn from them. And I would also recommend definitely sitting down and having a conversation with both your program counselor and someone from the CIP office, because your program counselor will kind of give you advice on the academic options you have to study abroad, and then CIP will help you decide what study abroad program might be the best one for you.
Thanks, Jess. So I know that when students study abroad, they always wonder about the finances and how much it's going to cost. So I was wondering if you guys could answer the question with regards to financial supports. What are some financial advice that you would give to first-year students? Mike, you're up first.
Sounds good. Great question. I think for a lot of students, they have this notion that study abroad is going to be expensive. But I would emphasize a few things. First of all, if you're going on exchange, you're actually paying University of Guelph tuition to the University of Guelph and getting that international experience. So it's not like you have to pay these outstanding international fees, for example. I would also encourage students who are listening to this to simply Google University of Guelph travel grants. And here you'll find a list of scholarships and bursaries available from Student Financial Services. Even within your own department, there's probably scholarships available for you as well. And we can also direct you to external funders who provide grants for student travel. I would also point out that some of our programs might even be subsidized. So in the past, we've had field schools to Mexico, and we've had partnerships with airlines so that flights were included in those experiences. So I would definitely keep an eye out for that.
Thanks, Mike. And Jess, as a student who has studied abroad before, what financial advice would you give to students?
I would definitely recommend learning how to kind of budget your money and figuring out information with your credit card and debit card. So something that I did was I talked to my bank to see if my debit card would work overseas, like in case of an emergency, or if the main card that I would be using would be my credit card. I also highly recommend starting to save money now if you're considering study abroad. So if you're in first year and you have a job, then maybe each time you get a paycheck, kind of put a little bit of money away into like a study abroad fund. Just like there's no harm in starting to save money now. And definitely while I'm abroad, it's important to kind of understand what are the cost efficient ways of things like traveling. So staying in hostels is definitely the most cost efficient way for living when you're traveling, and maybe kind of looking around and seeing what are the best transportation methods for long travels or even just kind of within your own city. So yeah.
Thanks, Jess. And if you're looking for more information about financing study abroad, we actually just had a session this morning that's recorded and posted on our website about the different financial supports that are available. So you can find out more information there too. So apart from financing study abroad, there are a lot of working pieces and logistics that you have to figure out. And so Mike, with regards to logistical support, what supports are available to students if they have questions about visas, passports, and flights, for example?
Great question, Jacqueline. I know for students, this might be the first time applying for a passport. It might be their first time applying for a study visa. It might be the first time booking their own flight. So obviously we have a great support team here at the Center for International Programs. You can always reach out to one of our peers. They're all past participants. We have Jacqueline here, who is our international education intern, and you can always email or book an appointment with your education abroad advisor. The other point that I would emphasize is that for all students participating in a study abroad experience, you have the opportunity to take some pre-departure training known as Depart Smart. So in this online course, you'll be given a whole range of resources that will help you answer some of these logistical questions. The last point I would point out is that we have a huge network of past exchange students who have participated in study abroad programs around the world. And the CIP offers opportunities like a Travelers Connection Night, where you can actually sit down and connect and network with these past exchange students. And we also invite our incoming exchange students who are here studying at Guelph, so you can get some initial questions and answers. And if you have questions about residence or where to live, or how to get from the airport to the university, this sort of informal network is a great way to answer your questions as well.
That's very true. Past participants are a great resource. So, Jess, with regards to logistical supports, what was it like navigating the airport? And can you walk us through the process of getting to the airport, the plane ride, going through customs on arrival?
Sure. So I was definitely really nervous to fly alone because I'd never flown without my family before. But I think my biggest piece of advice for flying is to just read the signs in the airport and ask questions. And also never leave your bags unattended, because I did that right when I got in there. So do not do that. And honestly, it's really not as hard as I thought it would be. I was freaking out because I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. Not a comfortable airport person. But there's so many airport staff around, and honestly, it's one simple question like, where's customs? Where do I put my luggage? And they'll just lead you in the right direction, and it'll be so much easier that way. And for customs, it's really, really important that you research online what they require of you going into customs in a certain region. So my abroad school is in the UK, and for them, they had recommended that I have my acceptance letter, where I'll be living, and how I would finance living in the UK. And they wanted documents for everything. So I had a folder in my carry-on backpack called the customs folder. And I had so many different papers because I was so nervous. I thought they were going to ask me all these different questions and documents. And they only ended up asking me for my acceptance letter, which I was kind of upset because I'd organized all this stuff. But it's always better to be safe than sorry. Especially in a foreign country, you don't want to be at customs and not have the documents, and then that would not be fun.
Yeah, all of your organization, I think, was good, even if they only asked for the one document.
I was so mad.
Good advice. So going off of Mike's point, you talked about Depart Smart. So Mike, what are some other issues that are covered regarding health and safety?
Well, one point I would emphasize is that CIP prioritizes the fact that we want all our study abroad participants to have a safe experience. And so we spend a lot of time improving and enhancing our resources like Depart Smart. Depart Smart will cover topics like what to do in an emergency, the role of the Canadian government, travel insurance, safety concerns, vaccinations, issues like mental health, things like that. We also explore issues of identity and travel. And as I mentioned, travel insurance is a big part of it. So we offer a comprehensive travel insurance plan through GuardMe, and a lot of this information is available to students online as well. Lastly, I would point out that if a situation does arise, we are always there to support you and to work with our partners at the host institution if something does come up.
That's a great point to keep in mind, that you do have the supports from our CIP office and the host university, so you're getting help from both ends. So Jess, this next question is for you. As a young female traveler, what was it like for you to travel in terms of health and safety? What are some general safety tips that you would provide to our first year students?
Definitely for safety, one of the biggest pieces of advice I would have is to travel in groups. So in my travel group that I had, we always were making sure that we were sticking together. Even on buses, we always kind of sat around each other, and if it was like a seat of two, we would try and make sure that we were sitting in two together. And definitely to leave your valuable and things that are important to you at home. So I actually didn't bring any like really kind of big valuable things with me on my exchange because I just didn't want to lose them. So if it's something that's really, really important to you, I would recommend just not bringing it and leaving it at home. And something else that really helped me out when I was abroad is kind of asking around to like the local students and people in my residence. If you're going to pick the accommodation that is residence, definitely ask them, you know, how to get around, where the local grocery stores are, how the bus system works. And also in my school in the UK, they did offer us health insurance. So if you're kind of confused about that stuff, you can always ask them, you know, how their health insurance works and just kind of get more information about it there.
Yeah, I think those are some great tips. Thanks, Jess. And so, Jess, also about your academic experience. So in terms of academic supports, how did you work with your program counselors to select your courses?
Yeah, so I actually had a few meetings with my program counselor, and my first meeting was before I even got accepted. So this is when I was doing my like application process, and I was asking them what are the mandatory courses that I might have to take, or how many electives I have to take while I would go abroad. So as I'm doing the abroad application, I could look at the schools that I wanted to go to and then look at those schools' program catalogs and see if they actually had the courses that I needed. And I would recommend doing this before like you hand in your application, because a lot of the schools that I'd originally wanted to go to didn't have the courses that I needed. So it would have been kind of unfortunate if I'd picked those schools not knowing that and then not being able to go abroad, if it would have like hindered me academically. And then after I got accepted, I kind of picked a handful of courses that I might want to take. And then I went to my program counselor and I asked him if these would be able to transfer over afterwards.
Yeah, so we do say that study abroad doesn't delay your graduation, but it'll take work with your program counselors to make sure that you meet all of those degree requirements. So meet with them early. Mike, this next question is for you. For students who require accessibility services, what would you say to them?
I would say to them that the Center for International Programs is definitely committed to making study abroad and student mobility a lot more inclusive and accessible for all students. In the past, we've had students with visual impairments or hearing impairments, or students who had issues with mobility, who have all successfully participated in study abroad programs. If you're a student with accommodation supports here at the University of Guelph, we'll touch base with the host institution abroad and with their accessibility office to have those early conversations so that you know well in advance what supports will be available to you from your host institution as well. And that also involves mental health supports, for example. So we're definitely happy and willing to support you in these endeavors.
Yeah, and Mike will also be giving a presentation about student accessibility services and study abroad later today at 3:30 if you want to find out some more info. So I know that studying abroad can also be a big step for students outside of their comfort zone and everything like that. So Mike, can you speak to some of the emotional and social supports that might be available to first-time travelers?
Great question, Jacqueline. One thing I would emphasize is that this whole process, this isn't something that you're doing alone and trying to figure out all by yourself. In fact, there's a whole support network there to help guide you and support you and answer your questions. So as I mentioned at the start of this presentation, we have a great team at CIP. You can always reach out to one of our amazing peer helpers like Jessica and Zoe here. You can always reach out to Jacqueline with your general inquiries. We have Chen, who is our education abroad advisor for students in commerce, arts, and social science, and myself, Mike. I work with students in science and engineering. Again, as we mentioned, you're working with your program counselors, and you're also receiving all these supports from the host institution as well, because they have a huge amount of experience working with exchange students, and a lot of students have the same questions. So there's a whole team out there willing and able to support you along the way. And I know that Zoe's going to talk a little bit about some of the social aspects of traveling abroad. So maybe Jessica will take a shot at that.
No problem. So definitely for social supports, I know, as Mike said, it can be sometimes a step out of your comfort zone kind of moment, but I would definitely recommend just like stepping out of your comfort zone and going up to new people, which is definitely scary sometimes, but one of the biggest things you can do is to just try your best to meet new friends. So if you're staying in residence, which I recommend if you go abroad to stay in residence, it's really easy to kind of meet new friends and people in there who will be local. And a lot of host universities will have events and special nights for like just exchange students. And there's a really good way to meet people from all around the world. At my host university's like exchange events, I had met people from like Italy, Germany, Greece, China, like so many different places. And sometimes even there will be other exchange students who are from other Ontario universities, which is kind of nice to meet those people too when you're abroad. And a lot of host universities will also have clubs or societies that you can join. And they have so many that are related to so many different interests. And there you can meet like other local students who have kind of the same interests as you.
Lots of great advice for our students. So Mike, for our last question, as for next steps, what advice would you give to first-year students?
Well, attending this session is definitely a great first step. I would also invite you to, again, check out our website, uoguelph.ca/CIP. Right now, if you look at our Facebook page, there's some great albums and photos from recent exchange students highlighting their experience. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter as well. So there's lots of great ways to continue to get some information along the way.
Thanks, Mike. And Jess, as a previous study abroad participant, what's your advice?
I would definitely encourage everyone to come speak to one of us peer helpers. There are 4 of us students, and we're all previous exchange students, and we love sharing our experiences. I know that we definitely have information to share and concerns that we can probably answer because we've all kind of been through it before. You can send us a message at cip@uoguelph.ca. Or we'd be happy to meet virtually too if you want to have more of an in-person conversation.
Thanks, Jess. I appreciate you volunteering to help out. I know the peer helpers have a lot of great information to share, so thanks for that. And thank you to you both for sharing all of that wonderful information today. I think it will definitely help put our first-year students on the right track to studying abroad. So I think something that's important to keep in mind is that typically most students will study abroad in their third year, and it takes almost a year, if not a little bit longer, to go through the whole application process. So if you are thinking about studying abroad, let's say, for example, in your third year, you're going to need to start the process in your second year. So you're well on track if you're watching this video. But the first step would be to attend or complete our info session, and that will put you on the right track to studying abroad. So I think we're going to go ahead and end this session here, but thanks to everybody for participating and joining us. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to our CIP office. We are more than happy to help you with any questions that you might have. Our email again is cip@uoguelph.ca. Thank you and have a